and we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, The Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 5, The Cause of All Causes, texts 24 to 32, and we'll read from text 31. So if you want to pull it up on your devices, you may. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jana Jana Shalakaya Chakshul Mitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who was established within this material world, the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasanubhyavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Vaishnav devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees and can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda, Shri Advaita, Gadadhar Pandit, Srivas Thakur, and all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I pray that Sri Radha Kalachandji, Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Gurudev use me as an instrument so that their message can flow through me to give me the words to serve the Vaishnavas listening. So, as I said, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, The Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 5, The Cause of All Causes, Text 31. Please repeat. Teja Sattu Vikuru Vanad. Indriyani Dasabhavan. Jnana Shakti Kriya Shaktir. Buddhi Pranaschat Taijasao. Shrotram Tvagrahana Drikjiva. Vagdor Medhrangri Payava. Please chant. Teja Suttu Vikurvanan. Indriyani Dashabhavan. Jnana Shakti Kriya Shaktir. Buddhi Pranas Tachadre Jaso. Shrotam Tvagrana Trikjabam. Vagdor Midrangri Payava. Okay, please repeat. Taijasat. By the passionate egoism. Tu. But. Vikurvanat. Transformation of. Indriyani, the senses. Dasa, 10. Abhavan, generated. Jnana Shakti, the 5 senses for acquiring knowledge. Kriya Shakti, the 5 senses of activities. Buddhi, intelligence. Prana, the living energy. Cha, also. Taijaso, all products of the mode of passion. Shrotram, the sense of hearing. Twak, the sense for touching. Grihana, sense for smelling. Drik, the sense for seeing. Jiva, the sense for tasting. Vak, the sense for speaking. Do, the sense for handling. Midra, the genitals. Angri, the legs. Bhayava, the sense for evacuating. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. By further transformation of the mode of passion, the sense organs like the ear, skin, nose, eyes, tongue, mouth, hands, genitals, legs, and the outlet for evacuating, together with intelligence and living energy, are all generated. Purport. The living condition in material existence depends more or less on one's intelligence and powerful living energy. Intelligence to counteract the hard struggle for existence is assisted by the senses for acquiring knowledge. And the living energy maintains themselves by manipulating the active organs, like the hands and legs. But on the whole, the struggle for existence is an exertion of the mode of passion. Therefore, all the sense organs headed by intelligence and the living energy, prana, are different products and byproducts of the second mode of nature, called passion. The mode of passion, however, is the product of the air element as described before. So we'll go back and read text 24 through 32. Text 24. The self-centered materialistic ego, thus being transformed into three features, becomes known as the modes of goodness, passion, ignorance in three divisions, namely the powers that evolve matter, knowledge of material creations, and the intelligence that guides such materialistic activities. Narada, you are quite competent to understand this. 25. From the darkness of false ego, the first of the five elements, namely the sky, is generated. Its subtle form is the quality of sound, exactly as the seer is in relationship with the seen. 26 through 29. Because the sky is transformed, the air is generated with the quality of touch, and by previous succession, the air is also full of sound and the basic principles of duration of life, sense perception, mental power, and bodily strength. When the air is transformed in course of time and nature's course, fire is generated, taking shape with the sense of touch and sound. Since fire is also transformed, there is a manifestation of water full of juice and taste. As previously, it also has form and touch, and is also full of sound. And water, being transformed from all variegatedness on earth, appears odorous, and as previously becomes qualitatively full of juice, touch, sound, and form respectively. 30. From the mode of goodness, the mind is generated and becomes manifest, as also the 10 demigods controlling the bodily movements. Such demigods are known as the controller of directions, the controller of air, the sun god, the father of Daksha Prajapati, the Ashvini Kumaras, the fire god, the king of heaven, the worshipable deity in heaven, the chief of the Adityas, and Brahmaji, the Prajapati. All come into existence. 31. By further transformation of the mode of passion, the sense organs like the ear, skin, nose, eyes, tongue, mouth, hands and genitals, legs, and the outlet for evacuating, together with intelligence and living energy, are all generated. O Narada, best of the transcendentalists, the forms of the body cannot take place as long as these created parts, namely the elements, senses, mind, and modes of nature, are not assembled. So if we remember, Narada had asked Brahmaji a bunch of questions about, how did he come to be? How did he gain the authority that he gained? And now Brahma's answering these questions. And as he's doing so, he's detailing creation once again. Now I was thinking about this, that this is, if you read the Bhagavatam, the creation comes up over and over, and it's described over and over. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that creation is described over and over again?
Yeah, there might be several aspects, but the one that comes to my mind is Srimad Bhagavatam is like Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Krishna and Srimad Bhagavatam is spoken about Krishna. So when you say God is great, what makes him so great? What is his greatness? Like in other isms, other religions, we see God is great. Allah is so powerful, but how powerful he is and what makes him so great, there is no information. So Srimad Bhagavatam gives all that information, and the pinnacle of that information is the 10th canto. So, as is also said in Srimad Bhagavatam, when one goes in front of the deities to have darshan, one should not directly look at their face. You should start with a humble mood from his lotus feet. So Srimad Bhagavatam cantos are compared to different limbs of Krishna's body. So first two cantos are compared to the lotus feet. So that's how actually you take the darshan of Srimad Bhagavatam before you directly jump on to, 10th canto. So you understand what makes him so great, what is his greatness. So creation is one of that insignificant aspect of his greatness.
Great. Yes. Thank you for sharing. So one reason could be that we can understand the greatness of God. Do we have any other ideas about why creation is described over and over again? I mean, it's an important topic, right? It's considered one of the principal topics of Srimad Bhagavatam. The first canto is entitled Creation, right?
Also, one more point that came to my mind was people in general, they do not have access to the more confidential, more confidential and most confidential knowledge that Krishna describes. So people in general, they have this misconception or understanding that Brahma is the creator. But Srimad Bhagavatam absolutely, categorically smashes that concept. That Brahmaji is just an instrument. All due respects to him, that is also a big service. So the original creator is Krishna. So that's how probably it has been described.
Right. And the chapter that we're reading is entitled The Cause of All Causes, right? So any other thoughts as to why creation is described over and over again? Grab the microphone, please.
From what I have heard from other Bhagavatam classes, there are two leelas of the Lord that are worth describing. One is the creation, about the creation of the world and about other manifestation, and the other is the Lord incarnation as Krishna himself. And those leelas are very auspicious. The different moods in the Braja, and among them, to first set up the mood for that leela, the leela of creation is also described in so many ways, like in other subsequent cantos. Even Vidura has asked about the creation of the world and how Brahma created the world. And in so many parts, the creation has been described. So that will form the place where the Lord is doing his Leela and how we are there and all those activities. So that is one of the auspicious activities. It will remove any sinful reactions we have if we get that idea of how the whole universe is created and how Lord is doing his Leela as the Supreme Personality.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, great. Yes.
Creation implies creator. So anytime we see any object or any product or any mechanism, the first thought that comes to you know, our mind is who created, who made it. So people always want to know, you know, they're always curious whenever you, like Prabhupada also writes in the purport of the first verse, when we look up in the sky, we look at the stars and huge unlimited sky, you know, we wonder, who made it? So just to answer or just to, you know, address that curiosity issue of the people in general.
Thank you. Yes, these are all great points, and it's exactly right. So when we know that Krishna is the creator, he's the ultimate source, you know, we look around, because we tend to think we are the ones in charge. We have the power, right? We're endeavoring to earn our opulences, wealth, beauty, fame, renunciation, just whatever we can to gain power, to get, you know, to have ourselves feel important. And yet here we are learning that we're not that important. I'll repeat that quote that we've heard before, that from the Servant of the Servant that Tamal Krishna Goswami relates, that Prabhupada began to explain the plan of creation. First he pointed to where Krishna was and described how the entire creation was an extension of Krishna's energy. The Vaikuntha planets, broad and effulgent, were unlimited in number. Then Prabhupada pointed to the corner of the painting where the material world was situated. Mahavishnu is lying down there, and millions of universes emanate from his skin holes. Prabhupada said each universe is filled up with unlimited numbers of living entities who inhabit all of the planets and stars. One of these planets is our Earth, and on this planet are many continents, and on one continent there's America. And in America, there are so many big cities. Here's Los Angeles, and in Los Angeles, there's a street, La Cienega Boulevard. On this boulevard, among all of the buildings, is a temple of the Lord Krishna. And in this temple, there's one Tamal Krishna, and he's there and is thinking that he is very important. And that's basically all of us. We have this vast creation, and we learn that this material world, this material part of creation, is only 1/4 of the entire creation, of the entire existence. It's just a drop, and then each one of us is like 1/100th of the tip of a hair follicle, right? So we think we're so important, right? We really like, how dare you do this to me, or, you know. But when we learn that there's this vast universe and we're just these tiny little dots, we can feel insignificant, right? Like, what does it matter? Why does it matter if I do what I do? Because if I'm so small, it makes no difference. But we also learn that one person can make a big difference, right? Like, look at Srila Prabhupada. He made a huge impact on the entire world. And if we look at what's kind of just taken for granted in part of our culture, it comes from the fact that Srila Prabhupada came to America and taught these teachings, right? Like, you hear the word karma used all the time, you hear the word dharma used all the time, vegetarianism, you know, like, these things were there, but like, Prabhupada brought them to the forefront, and now it's just, people say it, they don't even really understand what karma means, and they'll be like, oh, this is karma, you know, and, or, you know, so even yoga, right? So these ideas, these practices, they come from this ancient, you know, teachings that Prabhupada brought. So one person can make a huge difference. And on top of that, even though on one hand we have to understand that we are insignificant, but we also have to understand that we're significant to Krishna. And we're only significant in our relationship to Krishna. So we can go into detail about, you know, Krishna expands himself, and then, you know, is this the whole creation thing that we're learning about. We can also understand that Krishna is personal. In Bhagavad Gita 7:24, he says, unintelligent men who know me not think that I have assumed this form and personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is changeless and supreme. So, yeah, he created everything, but he's also very personal. And he has this personal relationship to each and every one of us. He says, I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I'm also a friend to them. Can you imagine having the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a friend? Right? Like, what is a friend? Share, what are some important things, qualities that you have, that you consider in people that are friends?
Well, I personally love meditating on Krishna and Arjuna's relationship. The first time I read the Gita, it was just so profoundly beautiful to me. And so when I think of them and I think of my close friends, a real friend to me is someone who is always there for you in any situation. You can text them when you're having a good day or a bad day, and they'll always respond with what you need.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Any other thoughts?
Friend in need is friend indeed.
Right, a friend in need is friend indeed. It's true. So Krishna uses this word friend again and again, right? He calls Arjuna, he also says, I am the dearmost friend. And he says he's a friend to all the devotees, right? And devotees are all friends to him. So can you imagine having Krishna as your friend? In the material world, we always want to have someone famous, right? We have this name-dropping thing that we can do, right? If we know someone, oh, I'm friends with so-and-so, somebody rich and famous. But can you imagine being able to say, I'm friends with Krishna? Like, I'm friends with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? And that's the kind of relationship that we want to know. At the same time, we want to have this undertone of understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He did create all of this. At the same time, meditating on that personal form. So if we look around, of all the pictures that are depicted of Krishna in this temple room, there's not one that depicts his universal form, his creation form, Mahavishnu, Paramatma. They're all with him surrounded by friends. So friendship is really key here, right? When we are, and Krishna's not like the Facebook friend, right? Like, it just friends us and then we don't really know who he is, and we may never have met him, but we're just connected on Facebook. No, he's like our true friend. He's always there wherever, like that friend that we always need. Sometimes even our best of friends aren't readily available to us. They might be we might be in crisis while they're sleeping or at work, or something is going on, right? But Krishna is always available to us. I would say he's just as far away as picking up our beads, but he's not even that far away. He's there. We just have to call him and think of him, and he comes. In Bhagavad Gita 7:17, he describes all the different types of people that want to know him. And then he concludes with, those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the demigods and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So the key here is that Krishna is a person, and we have a personal relationship to him. And we are insignificant as long as we don't realize that personal relationship. The moment we realize that personal relationship, our being becomes significant. So we're only significant in relation to Krishna. What is our relationship to him? How are we relating to him? How are we serving him? How are we thinking about him? So that's the kind of mood that we want to have, this personal form. So what are some things that we can do to make sure that we have this meditative form, that we can meditate on this friend form of Krishna, this personal form of Krishna?
So, Srimad Bhagavatam is a very like a holy scripture, and Sukadev Goswami has taken it from his guru Vyasadev, and many other rishis like uh, mm, are being described over there as Bhagavatams. All the stories we can hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, they are like the stories of different Bhagavatams, different uh, extraordinary personalities, and their life and whatever they are asking, that will determine the state, or that will play a great deal of part in a devotee's life for their bhakti and everything. So this universal form is described everywhere, like because it is described because we are with all the desires, we are a part of a material nature, and we cannot get over it without the meditation. And it is prescribed that we meditate rather on the Krishna's pastime than to the universal form, to get rid of our desires and to be as pure as we can. And with that process, some people will easily recognize that okay, they are closer to desirelessness, or like they have no more desires, and they can go on to the Krishna stories, or successively on the different the rasa dance and other Krishna's pastime, and they can get a great deal of benefits from that auspiciousness and everything, because we are, even though the rasa dance is an extraordinary leela, but once we hear it in our heart, because of our material tendency, we tend to be get more sinful, or such kind of enviousness or other things can arise. So as pure as we can get by meditating on the universal form, the yogis and all the jnanis will do that before they jump into the other meditation of the pastimes. So, Hari.
Yes, thank you.
I think and I could speak of for myself, how to start thinking of Krishna as a friend is for me to hear pastimes of him with his friends and hear about his personality and how he helps them and how he plays with them. That helps me to think, so that when I see his face, I don't just see the Supreme Lord, I see Krishna. And also, we have deities at home, Krishna Balaram, and so I try every day to just talk to Krishna like I do my prayers, but just talk to him as a friend of, I'm doing this today, and oh, you look so nice, and just try to talk in that kind of a way helps me.
Thank you for sharing. That's very nice. Yes.
For me, as simple as singing the beautiful song, Adaram Maduram, that song is so beautiful. It describes whole personal aspects of like activities of Krishna, how beautiful are his limbs, everything.
Thank you. Yes, so we can read about Krishna, we can think about these pastimes that we read about, right? So that's why the Srimad Bhagavatam is so important. Yes, we're discussing creation over and over again, but in that we get these little bits and morsels of Krishna's personal form, and then we really get the personal form in the 10th canto. As you said, it builds up, right? So we get that idea of the personal form. We can, we have our very simple formula of being able to remember Krishna and think of him as a friend, right? Chanting japa, eating prasadam that's been offered to Krishna, and thinking about Krishna when we eat that. Like, if we offer prasadam, oftentimes, maybe it's just me, I'm the only one that's guilty of just shoveling food into my mouth in front of the TV and not really thinking about it, even though it's prasadam, right? But if we were to sit and think and meditate as we're eating, thinking about how's Krishna enjoying this type of food, does Krishna eat pizza and pasta and, sandwiches, or does he only eat gulab jambus and laddus and, traditional Indian Vedic food, right? So we think about these things while we're eating. We can discuss with each other, right? That's another form of friendship, but we're all friends in relation to Krishna, right? So then it really brings our friendships up into a level, but also our friendship with Krishna gets raised when we discuss with each other these pastimes. And not just the pastimes, when we notice Krishna in our own lives. Because he's there. He's constantly in our lives, just waiting for us to notice him. And when we do, we discuss that with each other, that love grows even more in our hearts, right? And we discuss all the different ways that Krishna has blessed us, even though it may be a challenge. But we can see how we've grown from it, and our devotion and our spiritual path has progressed as a result of these challenges. Or it could be, a true blessing in which things are going great. And, it's a little harder sometimes at that point to think of Krishna, but we can think of Krishna during those times too, right? So when something good happens, we want to share it with a friend, right? And then when something bad happens, we want to let it out, vent it out with a friend as well. And, right, they say, like, a friend is someone who doubles your pleasure and decreases your pain, like halves your pain, right? So that's what Krishna is, like, and even more so, instead of doubling our pleasure, he makes it infinite, and then he takes away our pain altogether. And not in the physical or, material sense, but in the sense that we realize that we're just but a speck of this creation in this body in this lifetime. It's not who we are, right? So I may be in this body, which is having, certain bodily issues and pains and growing older and all of these things, right? But that's not who I am. And when we realize that, and we understand that we're servants of Krishna, that we're friends of Krishna, that then these things don't matter as much, because we know this will end and we'll be in the spiritual world with Krishna, dancing, playing, with our personal relationship with him, and we'll have a body that doesn't have these aches and pains, right? So that is why we do all of these things, right? We have another way of sharing Krishna is in kirtan, right? We see, oftentimes we like to hang out with our friends during kirtan so we can dance, sing together. I've often noticed that kirtan is so much more enjoyable when you're sitting in kirtan with a friend versus if you're just sitting by yourself, right? And one way we can overcome that is to make sure we make friends with whoever we're sitting with, right? And Krishna is that connector. He connects us to make friends easily through that heart connection that we have. So I'll stop there and see if we have any questions, comments, realizations.
Can I just say one of my favorite parts of the Bhagavad Gita that has to do with Krishna and Arjuna's relationship?
Sure.
It's in the 10th chapter when Krishna is talking about the glories of his creation, and how every wonderful thing that you see in the universe is a spark of his splendor. So he says of seasons, I'm many-flowered spring. Of mountains, I am Everest. Of Maruts, I am Marichi. And then he says of Pandavas, I am Arjuna. And that just always really hits me in the heart, that what an incredible friend that he sees Arjuna as so high up.
Right. Can you imagine being friends with Krishna and Arjuna, or Krishna and Balaram, Krishna and Radharani? And, that's that name dropping that we talk about, right? Like if we are friends with some celebrity or someone famous or someone who's done something, right? Like when we had our new temple president, like Nrsimharupa, it's like, oh, I know him, right? You have this sense of like, ooh, I'm important because I know him. where, and can you imagine that, having that same relationship with Krishna? And that's what Arjuna has, right? And not only that, Krishna sees Arjuna in that light, but he also sees each and every one of us in that light too. So he relishes our friendships. Yes, we're 1/100th of the tip of a hair follicle in 1/4 of the creation, and Krishna puts importance on each and every one of us, right? We are insignificant until we become significant to Krishna. And so that's what we're striving for, is to have that feeling of significance from him. But we're seeking it in so many different ways, right? And it's amazing to think that Krishna can think of us in that high regard. But he does, right? And if we think about all the things that Krishna has, the one thing he really wants is our friendship, our love, and he doesn't have that, right? And that's why we want to give it to him. It's the only thing we can give him. So, yes.
On the universal form, I want to read the text 41-42 from chapter 11. Saketi matva parsabham.
Can we just stick to the English, please?
Saketi matva parsabham.
Can we just stick to the English, please?
Yeah, I'll translate as well. He Krishna, he Yadava, he Saketi, ajanata mahiman tavedam, maya pramaddat pranayena vapi, yat sabah sartham asata kirto asi.
Can we stick to the English?
भोजनेषु एको अथावपि अच्युत तत् समक्षम तच्छमये तवम aham अप्रमेयम. So I have in the past addressed you as O Kanaya. This is Arjuna is speaking. I have in the past addressed you as Kanaya, O Yadav, O my friend, without knowing your glories. Please forgive whatever I may have done in madness or in love. I have dishonored you many times while relaxing or while lying on the same bed or eating together, sometimes alone and sometimes in front of many friends. Please excuse me for all my offenses. So this verse is spoken by Arjuna after seeing the universal form. He was astonished as well as in excitement as well as in some kind of fear, because we are of the material nature, so we cannot comprehend the universal form or the spiritual form of the Lord, and that brings us so many things in our whatever is in our heart. Like for me, it's like he wanted to see Arjuna as a friend wanted to see the universal form as well as his two-handed Krishna form, and all different. He wanted to know all about Krishna, because now for him the war is not there, and he don't want to fight the war. He want to just listen to Krishna, and he is telling him that, oh, in the madness of love and friendship, I have done this and that. Please forgive me. And so this verse is very important for me, because it shows that out of friendship, sometimes we don't realize what we are doing, but our acharyas, they will strictly decide. They can decide for us what to do, for those feelings. Like and our acharyas, they have told us not to jump on the different leelas directly, and meditate on the universal form. And I have heard that there is a strict guideline. If somebody has still some desire, they should not directly jump into Krishna's leelas or the pastimes and try to meditate on them and things like that, because their heart is still having those contamination and those sinful reaction could occur. And so the best way is to practice meditating on the universal form and try to be as less desire, and then meditate on the Krishna's form. So that will help.
So that is not our mood here in Krishna, in ISKCON, right? We are Rupanugas. We very much want to meditate on the personal form, because that is the form that we relate to. That's the mood of a devotee. So we understand that there's the universal form, that there's the creation, but just like Arjuna and Krishna's relationship, the glory of that relationship is the personal relationship there. Not that, in that moment, Arjuna does feel like, oh my God, you're all of this, but Krishna doesn't want that from him, right? He wants that to be just like a friend. And so that is our mood. We do that by meditating on the personal form, but understanding that there is this universal form, that he is Krishna. And that's why we read, when we go from Canto 1 to Canto 9, we learn about all the different pastimes, but we learn about his personal pastimes, right? We learn about Nishingadev, which is a personal form. We learn about Lord Ram, there's so many different personalities that Krishna represents himself as. And then finally, when we have this understanding of the balance between the personal and the universal form of Krishna, then we can really relish the Rasa Leela and the 10th canto. But really, that is our mood, is to meditate on this personal relationship with Krishna. Yes?
And thank you so much. And I just wanted to share that Krishna, he only revealed his universal form. Well, he did it for two reasons. One, because Arjuna asked, but two, so that the people of the future would understand that he is God. Because some people can be like, oh, what do you mean that little blue boy playing a flute is God? And let me show this other dimension of me. But it's not his truest or highest form. His truest, highest form is the cowherd boy that we can have a relationship with.
Exactly. So.
How amazing is Arjuna's friendship with Krishna. Like, Krishna revealed his form, universal form, and his position to Arjuna in the battlefield. Before entering into battlefield, when Duryodhana and Arjuna approached Krishna, right, to ask for the help, on one side there was Krishna's army, Narayani Sena and everything, opulence. And on the other hand, there was just Krishna, weaponless. He had taken the vow not to lift a weapon in the battlefield. So imagine, you're waging a war with someone, and let's say Mr. Biden is your friend, and he says, my army and everything, you have to choose between me or obviously nobody's going to choose him. So imagine Arjuna chose Krishna to everything else. Amazing.
Right, and we see that also in our own friendships, that sometimes we are peers, but sometimes if we're in distress, we may turn to a friend for advice, and in that moment, the relationship changes just a little bit, right? Because in that moment, they're advising us, they're our mentors. But then when the distress passes, we go back to being friends, right? And that's exactly how it was for Arjuna and Krishna, right? In that moment, he was in distress. He called to his really good friend, who was his driver, who he chose above all else, right? And then afterwards, that love is still strong. He still loves him as a friend, as a cousin, right? It's like they have this idea, this knowledge that he's Krishna, but in Vrindavan, nobody has this idea that he's God.
And I heard from someone, those days, like chariot drivers, because there was so much big commotion in the battle, shouts, everything, right? So if the person who is on the chariot, he had to say, okay, take right, take left. And he had to kick the chariot driver, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine how many times Arjuna must have kicked Krishna.
That is intimate relationship. But I'm sorry, we have to end here because it's already past 8:30. So, this is when we end. But we can discuss next time. But yeah. It's just that it's time for class to be over, and they're really strict about us ending at like 8:30, and it's already 8:34. So, thank you, Hare Krishna. Tadantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.